before we actually go on the air, leave a few comments.
Wait, are we on the air?
Yeah, our audio is,
Our voices are now, so yeah.
Whew. Okay, good. I was afraid I was exposed.
You're not exposed.
I could be.
You are exposed.
Well, we're talking visually.
Yes.
Visually, okay.
Okay, good. Nice. I like how you did that. That's
Okay.
great. Okay, shall we go on, Paula?
Sure, yeah, let's
Okay.
do it. Hello, this is Paula, and this is the Common Book Show. We're here today with Richard and Greg, and of course me, Paula, and Tony, and our son Tom, who is in the background and engineering the whole kit and caboodle. Boy, I don't know where that word came from.
The whole shebang.
The whole shebang, yeah. So anyway, I don't really have a lot that I have prepared today, but I was listening to, on YouTube, they have these things, 7 lessons of, and they usually have all the great philosophers and psychologists and, all the historical figures, any kind of philosophy you can imagine. They take it and they break it down into 7 life lessons of someone, and this one was Rumi, and this is what I listened to today when I was taking a bath. So I realized as I was getting ready to talk about this that Leonard Cohen used this line in one of his songs about the cracks are where the light gets in. And that's a Rumi. He borrowed that, shall we say, from Rumi, who felt that that the holes are where the light comes in, where the wisdom comes in. And I didn't know this, but he was a scholar, and I knew that before he became a Sufi. He was a brilliant scholar, and everybody thought he was going to be the best thing since sliced cheese. And he met this another Sufi. He met a Sufi, and the Sufi just blew his mind because he made him realize that not all knowledge is learned with your head. That there's other forms of knowledge, and it was, of course, the knowledge of God, which was in the Sufi tradition different from the Christian tradition, and so the Sufis believe that love is the highest parameter. It's the highest thing, and that the world is created through love. And so when he met this friend and this Sufi, and he started learning from him, this guy was being pummeled by all the rest of the people that Rumi knew before he decided to chuck the learning, the educational, intellectual learning part of his life and go into this mystical seeking part. They hated this guy because he was taking Rumi away from them. So they just drove him crazy, and they drove him away. And it broke Rumi's heart because Rumi felt this connection to this guy that he hadn't felt with anyone else. And so when Rumi lost this friend, that's when he started writing his poems. And that's where he got the notion, because he felt like his heart was broken. Where the light comes in, where the break is. If it was a solid orb, the light couldn't get in. but when it breaks, that's where it comes in. So I mean, I just love that idea, and I think Leonard Cohen using it's a beautiful. He used it in a beautiful way in his song. But
I remember that song.
yeah, the thing is, I mean, how do you feel? How does everyone feel about this? About the idea of adversity and that being the catalyst for change and for understanding more than change, but understanding, like to be hurt and then to come back from that hurt with that deeper understanding of what the world's about and, what love means. I too, I was initiated into the Sufi tradition by Pir Vilat, but it was my idea to be initiated into all the religions. This was when I still believed in God, because I thought I wanted I wanted all of them on my side. So I was initiated into the yoga tradition. I was initiated into Sufism. I was baptized as a Christian, and I tried for a while to become a Jew, but that one didn't work out. But so I love the Sufi stories, and I love Rumi, and I think that the idea that love is the answer to everything. I mean, I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about love that for mankind. And I mean, is that naive of me? We were just talking about naivete.
Well, how much of your mental health is tied up in the other people that you know?
Well, no. I mean, I'm not saying it is love necessarily for other people. I'm not saying that it's just an attitude. It's an attitude of compassion and an attitude of, I have a few people in my life that I feel I'm attached to in a way that my well-being is somewhat, but there's no one in my life, including Greg, who would leave a big enough hole that I would jump into. Because I don't believe in that. I don't think you believe in it either.
No, I
Yeah.
don't believe in it.
Yeah, I think that we're all interconnected as people, but I don't feel that it's an individual that this love is about. I think it's about the whole.
Is it like a love of the abstract idea in your head of humanity?
No, it's just it's an attitude of not that it, and it's hard to explain because it's not that it I feel like I have to save the world, or I feel pain when I see suffering. I know suffering exists. Suffering is there. I'm not going to be able to stop it. It just exists. It's part of it. But it's in how you interact with the world. I mean, and that's not just people, because you don't, rape the earth. You don't go in with pesticides and kill insects that may or may not be doing the plants some good or the world some good. It's a feeling of compassion.
But it's more than that, because you put it into practice.
Well, feeling, yeah, but it's practice, but you can't, when you have the feeling, you can't act in another way.
Well, let me tell you what I'm mentioning, the thing about feeling and practice. all
Yeah.
right? Did you see Bill Maher's show yesterday?
No, we're going to watch it tonight.
Okay, so he, that thing at the end, he does his speech. I forgot what he calls it. New rules.
Yeah.
He starts off by saying, how many meetings in America are opened up with the invocation, we're sitting here today on stolen land from the tribe of so-and-so and so-and-so, right?
Yeah.
And and Bill Maher basically is saying, is this a good idea to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And what I found that very relevant, that's exactly how the Peace Center opens up their every show.
Yeah.
You know, we're doing this show on land that was stolen from the Haudenosaunee people, blah, blah, blah. And because what Bill Maher is saying is, it's not like you're saying, I feel bad about this and we're going to give it back.
Yeah.
All it is I feel bad about it, but if I say this, the feeling will go away.
Well, see, the way I look at things is none of us own anything. It's on loan. You know, when we die, someone else will own it for their lifetime, and then somebody else will own it after that, if it's not just in a landfill someplace. I mean, I technically own my house, which is great for us because we have a place to live that's safe and secure. But I don't really own it. I mean, it's not arbitrary. What is abstract? It's an abstract thing. Once we're gone, ownership ceases. So I mean, I don't. All right. There's a lot of stuff that I would have done. I mean, no. If I was in that historical period when all that stuff happened, I probably would have had the same mindset as the people who did it. I imagine that the way my brain was set up by my education and by the things that I knew and by my religious fervor, thinking that I'm going to save the lives of these savages, I would have thought the same way. So I personally had nothing to do with the land being taken away. I think it's an atrocity. But I don't feel like I have to apologize for it because it's not in my control. You know, the only thing in my control is how I respond to things. How my body's not even in my control.
Yeah.
It's just the way I think about things is in my control. And so I can think what I want. I can think, yes, this was a horrible thing that was done, you know, hundreds of years ago to a people who didn't deserve it, and now they're still suffering for it, and there's been no, they haven't gone back and even apologized for it. But what can I don't know why they may make that statement, except maybe to educate other people, because there's so many people who never think about it.
Because you just gotta try to not make the same mistake that those before us did, or at least try to do one better. You know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it is an example, and maybe by saying that, the Peace Center can educate other people into knowing that this thing happened, and maybe going forward we can make better choices. But yeah, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't change anything. So
that's why I brought that up, because that's an example of an idea that you don't put into practice.
yeah.
And I was wondering if your idea of love is the same way. Is it an idea you don't put into practice, or you do? Because I got the impression you do put it into practice.
Only insofar as I can. Like, I'm not trying to save the world. The thing is, change. You can't change the world. You can only change yourself. That's the only thing you have control over. You know, you can't. You can say how you feel and maybe influence other people by that, but you know, if each person took that passion for changing the world and change themselves, you know, maybe there'd be a better world because everyone was changing themselves. You know, everyone was becoming a better person and more compassionate with each other. And, you know, I try to be compassionate with everyone I run into. Sometimes I'm not, you know, I'm not St. Paula Marie, you know, but I try to do the best thing I can each time I come in contact with somebody. You know, that's what I do. I mean, and I sometimes I suck at it. Sometimes I'm having a bad day. But I think that there's a lot of people out there who try their best and who are trying to change themselves and not, although most people have that big picture thing in mind. I want to change the world. I want everyone to act the way I think they should act. But that's not right either, because there's different situations and there's different people. And I mean, I don't understand Trump supporters, but that doesn't mean that there's not something valid in that for them.
I mean, it's hard enough with an individual to, as the saying goes, lead a horse to water and try to make him drink, let alone taking on a whole coalition or a whole city, a whole world. I mean,
Oh, look, we have James. Hello, James. I didn't see your smiling face there for a while.
hola, señor Jaime.
Okay, how about you? You think we can change the world, or you think we should focus on changing ourselves?
You can only change the world by changing yourself. Your example can convince other people to change themselves, but other than the institution of violence or the threat of violence, you can't change other people, which incidentally is why the government insists on what they call a monopoly of force. Because at the end of the day, force is the answer to the question, or else what?
Yeah. Well, what do you mean? I don't know what this thing is, this monopoly of force. What is? Can you explain
Yeah,
that?
give us an issue that will be changed through force.
The entire government is based on force.
Control through
You
fear.
do what we tell you to do, or we will escalate against you, up to and including the Branch Davidian compound.
Oh, well, I mean, how about things like laws? I mean, do you feel that that if people break laws, they shouldn't be subject to punishment? Is that
I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. I am saying that a law is based on the answer to the question, or else what?
yeah, you're right.
Do what we tell you, or else we will send you a letter in the mail. Do what the letter tells you, or else we'll send you another letter saying, now we're going to charge you money.
Right. Oh, they're over there.
Pay us the money, or we're going to send you another letter saying, now you owe us more money. And if you don't pay that, some goons will show up at your door, put you in irons, drag you off and kidnap you, and maybe if you're lucky, you'll get back home.
That's a pretty severe analysis, but it's interesting.
I don't know.
What the fuck, James?
It's interesting, James, but but it's not me.
Can you repeat that?
Hey, James, who's the hottie in the poster behind you?
It looks like the girl from Flashdance. I can't tell for sure though.
Oh, cool. I like BBs.
So all right. Wow, we're really getting into some weird territory here. Okay, let's do a regroup. All right, Greg, you brought a book. Is there something you want to talk about that you're reading in that book?
Sure.
Okay.
In this book, the guy says that society is very incompetent. It's filled with people with high IQs, middle IQs, low IQs, but they're all incompetent. And the incompetence is
Is just based on whose judgment?
it's his opinion.
Okay.
He thinks that basically because human beings are so flawed that incompetence is running wild in the world all through society. Because people, no matter how smart they are, no matter how much common sense they have, no matter how hard they try, they're incompetent. And that's basically the human condition, incompetence.
Whose book is this?
My idol, Vincent Pugliosi.
Oh, is this the Divinity of Doubt?
No.
Oh, it's another one.
Yeah.
The DA from
What
LA.
is this book?
It's outrage.
Ah, well, that
He's outraged by the incompetence of it's so prevalent in society that it's staggering.
well, I mean, I can. The only
Do you
thing
think that's true? In your opinion?
I think there is a preponderance of ineffectuality. I do think that.
Me too. Hey, look at this. It's like Saturday Night Live with Danny Aykroyd. That was something.
Yeah. So I can tell
Woke
you
me right
though,
up.
I can tell you that I will never get used to the telephone systems now. Have you tried making a phone call to a business?
Oh, you mean the robotic things?
Yes. And they will not give you a selection for
Yep.
general information. You have to either this is about your bill, this is about starting a new account, this is about they'll give you like 3 or 4 choices,
Yeah.
and they won't give you a 4. So and there's no way to get through. So you end up screaming representative into the phone because you're so frustrated by. And that, I think it would be so much easier if they just hired a human being to field those calls.
This is why I wanted to bring back drawing and quartering.
I don't think. I
But that's
think
just me, you know?
In some countries, I think it's still a thing.
Oh, I am there. Wait, they have telephone systems there
Wait,
too.
they may decide to draw and quarter you. Then how would you feel about that?
Hey, I didn't say it was gonna be fun for them, just me. I'm selfish.
Oh, I see. Okay, so yeah, I think that generally people are incompetent, but I think it's first of all, no one's doing what they does anybody believe that there is a inborn thing that you're supposed to do? I mean, a talent and a skill. Like look at Tony with this drawing stuff. This is something he's probably meant to do because
What is it meant to do? Fate?
Yeah.
not fate. It's part of his. Is there a television on or something someplace? Is there? All right. So anyway, I think it's not fate. No, it's just an inborn talent or an ability that you should be doing. Instead, everybody's being shuffled into the same pattern.
Well, because the things like drawing don't, if he draws, it doesn't mean it's the kind of thing people are looking for. They're looking for sell you some French fries at McDonald's,
Well, that's
sell you some
our
groceries at Wegmans,
that's why
not draw.
our society's broken. The capitalist system is broken. People are not happy. People are suffering.
Well, but I mean,
Yeah.
in non-capitalist systems, people are, I'm sure, feel unhappiness.
there's like a thing called a happiness quotient or something like that, and other places people are happier.
Where?
Like in countries where there's a lot of socialism and where people have a bigger degree of equality.
Well, maybe you think that somehow that socialist societies are happier generally, but that's kind of hard to really get to the heart of, because you'd have to talk to every single person in these socialist societies and see if they're happy, and then plus they might be just bullshitting you. And deep down inside, or not deep inside, they might just be unhappy.
Right.
Because isn't unhappiness more of the human condition, no matter whether you're socialist or communist or capitalist or whatever? Isn't it being unhappy? Basically, people are generally unhappy all around the
being
world.
dissatisfied is the cause of unhappiness. If
Right.
you
But people are dissatisfied.
well,
Probably in socialism too.
The reason they're dissatisfied is because they're told they want things that they don't really want. They're funneled into occupations they don't really want to do.
Yeah, but socialism, you might still be.
I'm not saying socialism's ideal. When I was in high
No,
school, I
no.
stopped being political because I figured out socialism couldn't work because people are, by and large, very greedy.
So what you have is, by and large, people are very greedy, and
Well, Americans more so, I think.
by and large, human beings are greedy, and by and large, people are dissatisfied because they would like to have a perfect life by their in the way they look at it. Like perfect life or close to perfect life, and it doesn't happen hardly at all.
Well,
Or someone says, "I want
But it's-
things to happen this way," and then they do.
it's in the way you look at it.
Oh yeah,
I
it's in
mean,
the way you look at it. But what I'm saying
happiness
is,
I'm trying to remember part of the quote. Happiness is not getting what you want; it's wanting what you have.
right. Well, that means you don't you,
It doesn't mean you don't strive. It doesn't
no,
mean
It
you
means,
don't-
but it means like if you're in this moment right now, you'd be satisfied with what you have. And people, as far as I can tell, generally aren't. They're usually not satisfied with what they have in the moment.
But why aren't they? Because isn't it because of what they're told externally? I mean, okay,
No, it's also because of what they say to themselves internally. Like, I want this thing with my family.
because they're
this thing
comparing
with
it
my-
against other things.
No, I know, but they compare it against other things, and people generally inside their mind will say, I want this relationship, this thing with my family, this thing with my job, this thing with my finances, this thing with my health, this thing with my country, this thing with my religion, this thing with my politics, this thing with my neighborhood. They want all these things, many items in their life to go the way they want them to go, with people and institutions and neighborhoods.
But
and,
you don't
and
have
countries.
you don't have control over the externals. You only have
No, you
control
don't
over
have
the
control of it.
internals. And the
You
thing
don't even
is,
have control over the
all
internal
right,
that much. I
a
don't
little
think.
story. My stepfather, John, the good one, he was born in a coal mining town, and he lived in this town, and everybody in the town was in the same boat, right? He had no idea about other people because there was no television. He watched movies, but movies were like fantasy. You know, there were movies, and so he lived in a situation in a life where he didn't want for things he didn't know existed. Now, with television especially, and of the internet, of course, everybody sees all these things outside of themselves that they don't have, and they see people looking like they're enjoying those things, and so they want those things. I mean, when he went to a big city for the first time, it was the first time he ever saw anyone who had more money than he did. He didn't have that experience because his world was small. Our world has gotten so big, and people have gotten so messed up about what's important and what's not important that that their wants exceed what they need. You
It
know,
seems to me that people are becoming just more and more of a shuffled around commodity
oh, well,
that's not worth anything.
yeah. There's a line that I wrote in a poem about people on the train being sent off to market in a society where there is no value to them.
Ain't that the truth?
I got a message from a friend who we were talking about the effect of technology on our minds.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a good conversationalist. He came up with a question. He said, do you think the majority of things that have been invented were invented because there was a need that needed to be fulfilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or because there was an opportunity to create a need? So I pointed out to him, I said, well, you know, before telephones were invented, people got along just fine without them.
Yeah,
But once they were invented, then suddenly you needed the telephone.
right.
See?
Well, that's,
So Sigmund Freud writes in his book Civilization and Its Discontents, which is an interesting book because it's sort of like Freud just doing stream of consciousness, you know?
Yeah.
And he says, in decades past, my child would have been raised entirely in this town. And if I needed to talk with them, I would just go down the street or whatever and visit my son. He says, but now we live in a much wider world, and my son has moved to another location. And the only way I can talk to my son now is through a telephone, something I would not have needed if, you know, he hadn't. So I said that what usually happens is something gets invented, like the ability of an airplane computer to land the plane on its own,
Right.
okay? And then what happens is people who know how to land planes on their own, they don't do it anymore. And then they lose that skill. And these days, most of the pilots flying in the air don't know how to land a plane. They're just relying on the autopilot.
We were just
That's freaky.
we were talking about this recently. How many phone numbers did you used to know by heart?
Yeah, that's an example. Yeah,
You know,
memory.
How many phone numbers? And I still know my girlfriend Mary Lou's phone number from when we were kids. I still remember it. But if I know Greg's phone number and I know my daughter's phone number and maybe Kathy's. Those are the only, and you know what? Gloria still has a home phone, and that was from when we were kids, and so I remember her home phone number. But those are the only numbers that I know, and if my phone like got destroyed, I'd be shit out of luck. You know, all of the numbers I don't have them written anywhere. I don't have a phone book, an actual solid phone book. I don't use the cloud. I don't like the concept of the cloud. So everything is on my phone. If it got run over by a truck, I would never be able to contact these people again, except on the computer I could Facebook them because my computer would still be in the house.
Never the Yugo's fault. Always the truck.
Yeah, well, you know, a Yugo would probably kill it too. But
We probably killed the Yugo.
but we, you know, we've lost. Wasn't there a movie about human beings in the future and how?
Yeah, the one Tom likes, Idiocracy.
No, not. But besides that one, which I like too, that you know, human beings were like they had no hair because they had no need of hair anymore.
THX 1138. We saw that. That was there were a lot of bald people in that one.
Bald people, but it was a futuristic
Yeah,
movie where they.
by George Lucas.
Yeah, they didn't have any need for doing certain things because everything was done outside. You know, they didn't have to have any of these skills anymore. And it's like, I want to know how to survive in the woods
Why?
if it comes to that. I don't know what's going to happen. I
Did you
want to.
take a course on surviving in the woods then?
I have certain and I know about plants. I know which plants you can eat in the wild and which plants you can't eat in the wild. I want to know these things because there might be a reason for me to know them someday.
And there might not be a reason.
There might not be a reason, but there's no wasted knowledge.
Well, you don't have to accrue knowledge if you don't want to. You can kind of slip through life without accruing a lot of knowledge. And then die.
Yeah, you can, of course. That's
Well, there
always
you
a
go, then.
choice. That's always a choice. You don't have to, but I kind of
You like
enjoy
knowledge
it.
more than I do.
I do. But no, you have more knowledge than me though. But it's different categories.
Frivolous knowledge.
It's not frivolous because how many times have I come to you asking you questions just like right now when I asked you about that movie? And you remember, and I don't have any knowledge. I don't remember.
No, I'm
that
saying
stuff.
Hollywood movies are frivolous.
But don't you think they teach lessons just like literature does?
Yeah, I guess they teach lessons sometimes, but there's definitely frivolous entertainment in Hollywood movies.
They were just talking
By
about.
definition, that's what they are.
Was the movie called Soylent Green?
Well, there's a movie called there's a movie called Soylent Green.
Yes.
with-
They were
with
talking
Charlton
about
Heston.
that on Sci-Fi, Science Friday on NPR. They were talking about that movie, and apparently they had predicted that movie predicted this. There's this thing now where our soil is disappearing because of the way we farm. Because when we take a tractor or whatever they use, or plow, and go through the soil and break it up into little pieces, it's destroying the soil. And there's going to come a point where we're not going to be able to grow our crops that are the most nutritious, like the grain crops and potatoes and the starchy crops. We're not going to be able to grow them because you can't grow them in any other substance except soil. You can hydroponically grow green things and strawberries and things like that, but we're going to run out of soil if we don't change the way we farm.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be able to feed the people on the earth.
Well, eventually, all things must pass. This isn't going to last forever.
Well, we're not going to.
People on the planet Earth are not going to last
I've got
forever.
less than 30 years, and
I don't mean you. I mean, yeah, you have less than 30 years. But the thing is, it's pretty obvious that people are not going to last on the planet, and the planet will be gone, will be dead. The whole species will be dead. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's very likely.
So.
Very likely, I think.
I think so. We've talked about.
I don't think it's going to last forever. Forever is a long time.
I think people I think the earth is pissed off at us and is trying to get rid of us, and I don't blame her.
I think human beings are fading away.
We're screwing the planet, and not in a good way.
I'm not sure how to broach this, but there was something that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
Little experience from Thursday night. The Perkins restaurant in Olean. I go there a lot for coffee and to work on my project.
Yeah.
And a couple times I'd been there before. I'd noticed this one family of three: a grandma, grandpa, and their grandson. The grandparents are very hefty. They look very rough. The grandson, I'd say, he's probably between 8 and 10. He's tow-headed, skinny little kid. Some people would say he's hyper. Some people would say he's annoying. Some people. I look at him and I look at the lack of interaction between him and his grandparents, and I'm thinking, man, this kid's starved for attention. He's not getting it. The grandfather's most of the time he's into his phone. The grandmother only ever speaks to him to bark at him or order him around. Basically demean him.
You're talking about, like, I would say 70% of the way kids are raised now.
Well, here's it gets better, okay? Up until Thursday night, I was observing from a distance because I'd never, been in a position to sit close to them, which I was Thursday night. And I got my book out, I have a toolbox, I started working, and I felt I was being watched. And it was a little tow-headed kid. And of course, he asked the partner kid question, do you like art a lot? I'm like, I love art, and
Yeah.
off to the races, right?
Yeah.
And can I come over and watch and everything? I'm like, yeah, and sure.
Yeah.
And Grandma's like, well, maybe the man won't appreciate you bothering him. I said, no. I said, he's fine. Yes, he can come over, So he asked, like any little kid, he asked me 1,000 questions. I probably gave him at least 960 answers. Like, I don't know. Then he brought his sketch pad over, and he started drawing.
He had a
stuff.
sketch pad with him?
Yeah, he made me a little drawing here. This is kind of neat.
It looks like it looks like a car that is actually a dinosaur. It looks like a dinosaur car.
Yeah.
I know you can see it on the thing. You probably can't.
Yeah.
But
I thought it was Dean. He says, you know who this is for? I'm like, who? He's like, you. I'm like, well, thanks, man.
you may have been the brightest spot in this kid's young life.
It's why I had him stay. Okay, now, previously watching these folks, I'd always noticed the grandpa would, after the meal, would get up first, head to the restroom. He'd be gone for a while. And then Grandma would wait till Grandpa got back, and she'd take her turn and be gone a while. Well, this time, Grandpa takes off, and, he's gone. And I know, next thing I know, Grandma's getting up, and before I can even react, she's halfway across the... I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's cool that he's got some art lessons and he's found a bud to draw with, but you're leaving your kid with someone whose name you don't even know, and that's weirding me out.
And yeah, your whole demeanor, Tony. I mean, as you're a little scary.
I don't know.
With the leather and you're just a little scary. So I can see where you would be concerned that they would be leaving their child
Well, it's just
without
I was
knowing them.
disheartened, honestly, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, I happen to be the one guy in the crowd that night I know would have done much to protect a kid from someone.
Right, but they didn't know that.
But I'm thinking to myself, if it's their nature to be that reckless all the time, what the hell's going to happen to that kid if they decide to get up and leave him with the wrong person?
Absolutely.
They don't exactly rush tending to their business, not to put a fine point on it.
Right.
And they come back and that kid's gone. Honestly, I mean, between seeing the way they typically treat him and just seeing how they couldn't seem to give him a damn, that really, I found it heartbreaking. It saddened me. And, I mean, well, I guess I am glad that I was at least, for my part, able to give that kid a little bit of time where someone treated him like a person. But in the future, because, I mean, I see the same people all the time there.
Yeah, it's a small town where you live.
So I mean, I'll be back there again, and obviously that family will be there. He'll probably want to hang out and draw and everything, and I'm not going to refuse. But as far as something like that, just getting up and leaving your kid like that, I didn't feel that I had a position to say anything
You didn't.
advisory or
You-
negatory.
You can't
Yeah.
tell people what to do with their
No.
children. That's a thing.
And I also couldn't see myself asking the kid, look, did someone at least teach you a word to yell if you're in danger?
right,
Because I don't want to come off sounding like a pedophile.
You can advocate for the kid if they left him there, and you could advocate, but you can't really. And
I'm
unfortunately,
just wondering what I could do in a situation like that if it happens again. Like I said, I know I'm not going to eat the kid.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let anything happen to him.
Yeah.
But it scares me that they could do this
Well,
with the wrong person.
that's just it's the way. You can't change it. You have no
know.
control over it. You did the right thing by just the fact that you stayed there while they were absent from the table was an act of
Oh, I never would have just spread like
kindness.
that.
It was an act of kindness.
But Paula, what scares me, what makes me freaking shake, is I don't ever want to see this kid
But
on
you-
a missing post.
Yeah, I know, but you can't control it. You can't get yourself all involved in it. You
No,
can't.
I know.
It's not something you can control. If you felt that this kid was in danger, really in danger, if you saw these people abusing him, you could report him.
I mean, they've never
report them.
touched him.
Well, you
know,
could report
I've
them
seen.
to child services, but you'd have to have some really good cause to do
Yeah.
that because they're busy. The child services is
Oh,
busy.
I know. Believe
Yeah.
me, I got a friend who works in she works in social services,
Yeah.
and
But yeah, well, you did the right thing, I think. So, Richard, do you have something on your list that we can talk about?
A subject that Mr. James Walker brought up when he visited me this week.
Okay.
Okay, so you know about this because I mentioned it to you and I mentioned it to Tony. Greg doesn't, and the other people
Yeah.
in the audience don't know about it. As more and more people are meeting using data apps, more and more data is being collected. And these apps are very good at collecting data, and then basically they sell it,
Yeah.
to either companies that want to know something about you so they can sell you something, or to researchers
Yeah.
who want to find out what's happening in society.
Yeah.
Here's an astonishing statistic. 75% of the women that are on the dating apps are interested in only pursuing 15% of the men.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
So the other 85%, it's not worth their time or interest.
Mhm.
Okay? But there is hope on the horizon for those 85%. Technology is combining artificial intelligence with silicone, fluids, and motors, and realistic sex robots are possible within the next 20 years. Now, some women are feeling threatened by that, and they want that progress stopped. What are your views on that subject?
I
Stop
think
the
no.
development,
I think that
or go ahead and
any
invent them.
man who is willing to settle for a sex robot is not somebody that I would feel threatened that they would have a sex robot. If a man wants a sex robot and doesn't care about having a woman with a personality and a mind and a heart, then why would I care if a sex robot is developed that will take care of that particular man's needs, who obviously isn't somebody that I'd want to introduce to any of my girlfriends.
Well, the fear is that these sex robots will become more popular than women themselves, and it'll be the death of the human race.
I don't see that happening. I don't think all men are only interested in sexual. I don't see. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of guys out there who are like, oh, what a relief! I don't have to talk to this woman, or I don't have to have a relationship. I don't have to take them out to dinner. That's just the same as having a prostitute, right, James? I mean, it's it's a non-committal kind of sexual experience,
Well, you only pay once.
and you only, good point.
Exactly.
You only pay once. And you know what? I would not rule out a lot of women being interested in a sex robot man.
You
I
didn't
disagree.
mention that. You didn't mention
Do you
that, James.
disagree? You disagree with that?
I would disagree.
When I
Because-
when I was single, I would have loved to have. I mean, I had opportunities with men. I didn't. I was very bitter, and I didn't want anything to do with them. So I would have enjoyed having a sex male robot at the house for me to turn the key anytime I was interested. That would have been great. And then I wouldn't have to talk to him about sports.
You mean back then all I would have had to have done was a safety dance and I could have been a shoo-in? Damn it all.
You know,
The difference is men and women want different things from each other. And the problem,
that's true.
and so the problem is you could make an android that could fulfill what a man wants from a woman.
Just the sex part are you talking about? Or are you talking about conversation and companionship and
Remember, this is an AI. You can have a conversation with an AI.
and that would be satisfying for you?
Let me explain something. Let me explain something. This particular point is a meeting on a graph
Yeah.
between 80 to 100% of women are uninterested in 75% of men.
But I know.
Hold on. Let me finish the paragraph.
Okay, I will.
This is a graph where you have the intersection of 75% of men do not get any interest from 80 to 100% of women. And so the question becomes, what are those men supposed to do? There's only two possibilities. You either tell women, look, the reason why you're unhappy is because you're all chasing the same 5 to 15% of guys who therefore don't have to commit because there's just too long a line in front of them.
Do you know how many?
And so, unless you lower your standard and pick from the guys who will actually pair bond with you and be faithful, then what are we supposed to do?
Okay, so
Now,
Except
we're
we're
never-
told to lower
are
our
the men-
standards.
right,
It's like,
I-
what the hell?
We're
Are the men-
we are never going to tell women lower your standards.
are the men
So-
going to lower their standards?
We're told to do that all the time, though.
What
That's the thing.
standards do men have?
Well,
You know?
I know a lot of single, lonely women who would be interested in a relationship, but they don't look
They
like
say that, but
Christy
they still
Brinkley.
pick from the same men.
No, they don't, because first of all, I'm in a different age group than you'd be choosing from. But I'm saying there are women, and I meet women, young women all the time, who are either dating somebody that is not suitable, or they would like a permanent relationship. They're not looking at models or rich guys. They're looking at the corral of men around them that they meet and they see. Most of the guys, and honestly, it still happens. I've always had a lot of male friends. And it's for one reason, it's because I kind of think like a guy more than a woman, all right? So I've always had a lot of male friends, and those guys, they were putting notches in their belts all the time, lying through their teeth. All these women that they were dating, they made it sound like, oh, I finally found you. And then what happens? They just screw them, and then they move on. And those were my friends. know,
In the meantime,
But those are the magic 15%.
well, yeah, they're the hot guys that are a little dangerous, a little edgy, but women eventually get tired of that and know that.
But they still don't want the boring guy.
Well,
Come on, ladies, give this bear a kiss.
boring. No, well, the thing is, I don't think you have to settle for boring, but I do think you have to. I think you have to look at the person as an entire whole being, and say, okay, this person would be, you're looking for a life partner. People forget about that. Somebody who would be a life partner, somebody who would work well with you, and share the responsibilities, share the joy, share the trouble, and be there for you when you need them. And if you have the kind of relationship where you want to be monogamous, that person would want to be monogamous too. That's what we're looking. That's what human beings are looking for. The same kind of love that they should have gotten from that opposite sex parent. They're looking for that kind of good, strong, bonding love. But we're all fucked up because we're told we want, this kind of way somebody looks, this kind of income, instead of looking at the whole person. Now, would I want to be with somebody who expected me to support them? No, but I also don't want to be. I don't need to be financially supported because I'm independent. So there's a. But I've been in a relationship where I supported the guy for like 7 years, and I didn't care for that. I didn't really care for that, although I think it was a good experience for me because now I know what it looks like to be a breadwinner and have to put everyone else's needs before your own. That sucks. It does. And I don't think men should be responsible for that. But I also, in the same breath, if both people are working and you're working in the house doing something, you're not helping. You're doing your share. If the woman works and the man works and they're both out there working 8 hours a day and they come home and the woman's expected to do all the fucking work, that's not a partnership.
How often does that woman pay the mortgage?
If you're equal partners and you're sharing the mortgage payment every fucking month, James. Every month.
Asked the question.
I'm just saying.
The woman is complaining about the guy doing dishes, and my question was, how often does she pay the mortgage?
You made an assumption there. What do you think? She's just buying makeup?
I didn't make an assumption. I asked the question.
Well, in this scenario, they are sharing the bills 50-50, and they're sharing the housework 50-50. If that's a partnership. That is a partnership. If you, or you can do it this way, one of the people stays home and does all the shit that you got to do, like laundry and cooking and bullshit, and the other person goes out and earns the money. You can do it that way because that's a partnership. Then that person that goes out to earn the money doesn't have to do dishes. This person does the dishes, the one that doesn't go out.
I agree with you. Look at that. Kumbaya, Paula. Yeah.
Songs from my childhood.
Here's the thing.
You mentioned
that same research that says that the average woman doesn't consider 75 to 80% of men seriously. Also,
where did you get? I mean, I'm just curious. Where did you get that statistic? Because I looked around the internet. I actually put those words into the search to find something that said that, and I couldn't find it. I found a lot of interesting things about online dating that I didn't know, but I didn't find that.
It's why
those stats come from OkCupid.
I did see something from OkCupid, but okay, go ahead.
That comes from OkCupid, Match.com, and Tinder.
So it was a study done of all three together?
it's just the separate data from those companies.
Yeah, because
It's just like how
what I found was that that most people will select mates that are 25% more attractive than they are. That was one of the statistics I found, which I found kind of hilarious. And the other statistic was that they that women who are interested in serious relationships do rate income higher than the women who are looking for a sexual encounter. Then the women who are looking for a sexual encounter are looking for people who are attractive.
Well, interesting. What I was about to say was the same statistics show that in order for a woman to take a man seriously for an actual relationship that could possibly include marriage, her idea of a equal partner on her level is a guy who makes 158% what she earns.
Yeah, I see. I can't speak to that because that's never been one of my parameters. But the thing is, I can understand women looking, especially if they want to raise a family. You know, you need somebody that's going to be contributing. But I think that if you're looking for a smart woman, not a doll, a Barbie doll in human form, you're going to find women who are willing to negotiate.
Well, here's the point of what this data shows, is that if you're a guy, it doesn't matter where your standard is, because the 300-pound woman who dropped out of high school and has 4 babies by 3 daddies,
who would want that
still
woman?
thinks my point is that woman still believes that she deserves a guy who's 6'2" with washboard abs and over $100,000
but why,
and no children.
What I want to know is why you're even considering that woman as a thing. You know, that would be
You're
like,
missing my point. You're missing my
I think he was
point.
just bringing up as like a case in point.
Yeah, I understand, but
Can I just say, my point is, men, it doesn't matter how low a man lowers his standard to, because the women's standard is all up there.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I'll never agree with that, but that's okay. We can disagree. I don't mind disagreeing with you.
It's what we do, Carla.
It's what we do. I know. Look, boy, we took a big chunk of the show on this, Richard, as you brought up. But yeah, that point I don't agree with. But the thing is, I think online dating there's got to be a better way to meet people now. There's got to be. I mean, I don't know how. I just don't. I partook in online dating, and I met a lot of really interesting people that I didn't want to date, and it wasn't because they didn't make enough money, or it was. And I think it's because of the profile that I had. The way I phrased it. I wanted somebody creative, but I didn't mean crazy. I meant creative, you know, like with a creative mind, but somebody who could still, you know, who could still somehow, you know, live in the real world. But I got a lot of people who didn't. I would have to seriously rewrite my profile if I ever did that again. But I don't have to, because this man right here is my husband, and I love him, so that's good.
Curses foiled again.
Anyway, so we're gonna be signing off soon. So has anybody got anything they really need to get off their chest before?
Would you like me to end the show with a joke that has a moral?
Sure, why not?
Okay. I was at an airport bar talking to some random person, and I say, "Hey, man, what do you do?" And he says, "Oh, nothing right now, but I used to be a priest." Well, I got nowhere to go, so we keep talking, and he's telling me about his life and his religious views, and we're drinking and we're laughing, and finally 3 hours go by, and he says, "Hey, man, I got to catch my flight. Great talking to you, but listen, I don't want to lie to you. I really was a priest, but I got kicked out because I molested a kid. So long." he leaves, and I sat there in silence thinking about, wow, I really got to know this guy for 3 hours. And I have to admit, he was actually a pretty cool guy, aside from that one thing. You know,
Yeah.
all that theological nonsense.
Yeah, that's I found funny.
What's the moral of the joke?
Well, the moral of the joke is that obviously that person rated religion somehow worse than child molesting. You know, that's why it's funny, because it's shocking. But I didn't expect that.
The dead milkmen are playing Smoking Banana Peels in my mind because my brain is fried from that. I have no idea what to say or how to react.
Goodbye, everyone.